are live. Welcome to today's GTFO, Grow Traffic Figures It Out. And today we are talking about healthy workplace cultures. So we've got 5 top tips for you on how to create a healthy workplace culture, which is not something that happens in a petri dish, but I always think about that when I say that now. So first of all, Natalie, what's your name? Where'd you come from?
Hi, thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. Natalie from Dynamic HR Services. So I am over in Cheshire, in the posh part of Cheshire. I won't give you too many details because I do get stalked by weird employees that I've packed over the years. So I'm out in the sticks. Try and find
You've
me.
run away to
I've
the
run away.
woods.
I have, yeah, quite literally. Um, so yeah, my business is basically I started off life as an HR consultant, in HR, and then set up my own business to do HR non-traditional sort of way and an unconventional approach. But I've been pulled more and more into working with the small businesses on creating great workplace cultures, which I'm guessing is why I'm here.
That is exactly why you're here.
Yay.
Yeah. Well, that and I think we just know a lot of the. I know you and Dali obviously used to work together, but
Yeah.
there's I know it's always a small world, isn't it? But we have had lots of mutual friends for quite some time,
Mm.
and then obviously started talking. But yeah, workplace culture is something we've been thinking about quite a lot at Grow Traffic in the last couple of years because we've gone from 4 to 9 now, with more coming on board, and obviously the workplace culture is something that is really important to us because when we first set out building Grow Traffic, we said, one of our main goals was to build the type of company that we would want to work for. And
Yeah.
so creating a good culture and putting that front and center was as important to us and making a company that people wanted to work for and had a good work-life balance and all the rest of it as doing SEO and providing a good service to our clients. So we will come on to talk about all of these things. But yes, that's why you're here. Thank you. Simon Daly, what's your name and where'd you come from?
Simon Daly. I am from Grow Traffic, one of the directors here at Grow Traffic, and various other bits and bobs that I kind of get involved with.
And you are on your way to a funeral, or you're going to a funeral
I am.
next, aren't you? Yes, you've not just
As
got
soon as
dressed
we
up for the
finish this
sake of it.
live, I'll be getting in the car and going to a funeral. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably my dad's about going to turn up any minute and wander in and talk to us while we're doing
All
this.
right.
So
Okay.
he's coming to the funeral as well.
Right. Okay.
So what was I going to say? So yeah, so I'm a director of Grow Traffic, but also in my past life, I've worked for an HR company in a marketing role there, led various campaigns, including one called the It Pays to Play campaign, which is all about encouraging playful activity in the workplace.
Which makes the rest of us at Grow Traffic like cringe. we're not up
They
for
hate the word
forced
fun.
playfulness. Yeah, we hate the word fun. Yeah, we're not fun. We're women against laughing. Anyway, before we go on to talk about the top 5 tips for building a healthy workplace culture,
Oh,
Natalie, what happened to you this week?
Oh, well, exciting things. Sorry, there was a bit of a blip there.
I blipped.
Exciting things that happened to me. Well, I was invited to Gino D'Acampo's launch of his new spring menu in his posh new restaurant in Alderley Edge, and I have to say it was pretty phenomenal. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was good. Did you see the photos?
I saw the photos and it made me very jealous because I had been, in fact, we had a conversation last night, didn't we? I was debating whether or not to order some Italian food. I've had a hankering all week for some really good Italian food. And in the end, I didn't. And I had a cheap, crappy cardboard pizza out the freezer. And then you put those photos up of that delicious Italian food you'd had. And I was like, oh, that's not fair.
Sorry, it was pretty good. Yeah, so he'd invited. So when I'm not doing HR, back in the day, I worked in motorsport and I got very involved in the sort of behind the scenes of motorsport, doing a lot of reporting and things like that. And that kind of element of my life has kind of followed me through to other areas. And when I'm not doing HR, I moonlight as a reporter, as a member of the press from time to time. And I was invited to the press launch of the spring and summer menu at Luciano's He's called the restaurant chain. So and it was very nice. They put on a taster menu, and Mr. DeCampo was there himself, and he was just exactly what you'd expect. I mean, he is literally like the guy like you would see on his is it This Morning, and his Gino and Fred, and what is it who is it?
Yeah, Gino, Fred, and is it Gordon Ramsay?
Gordon Ramsay, there you go, thanks. Yeah, so he is just like that. He's very Italian, very bouncy, very flirty, and lots of fun.
Oh, good food and flirty Italian men.
Well, yeah. I know, right? Great way to spend an afternoon.
And motorsport as well. I'm jealous about that. I know loads of people who are getting. We've got a friend who's been to all the Bahrain and Abu Dhabi and everything Grand Prix recently. I'm like, this is not fair. Simon Daly, give me something interesting that happened to you today or this week.
Well, a week ago we went to the Mayor's Ball, which was like the Rosendale's the Mayor of Rosendale's kind of gala evening type thing, and we were sponsoring it, weren't we? We sponsored the entertainment there, so it was a lovely evening, and yeah, it was very nice. Got to get dressed up.
Yes. And we got dressed up, and I had a good dance with some nice men. One very small man, one very tall man. So, yeah.
Was I the tall man?
No, you weren't. No, you were neither of the men.
I wasn't part of the nice men.
No, you weren't.
You weren't part of the nice men. No.
Yeah, not one of the nice men that I danced with. Anyway, right, moving on. So today we are here to talk about top 5 tips for building a healthy workplace culture. So tip number 1, start at the top. Now, this sounds obvious, doesn't it? But this is, in fact, a very conversation I was having with somebody just last week on Facebook. And we were talking about the police in that instance. But I was saying that, any good workplace, it's top down, isn't it? You can do everything you want to ensure that, the people at the bottom are following the rules or are happy or whatever. But if you haven't got management or a good, workplace culture ethic and whatever, and it isn't being led from the front, it is going to fail at every single step, isn't it, Natalie?
Yeah, in my experience, absolutely. I have a saying that's probably multiple people have used before, but a fish rots from the head downwards, and it is true. It is true. If the people at the top are not on board, and I've at the one and only company that I have not been able to turn around from having a toxic work culture was a company whose boss and the owner and boss of it was just refused to get on board with me, even though he came to me in trouble. He was like, these things are happening in my business. I'm desperate for some help, but then wouldn't change. So, from my opinion and in my experience, then yes, absolutely. Culture is driven from the top. Even if the culture changes or the sort of the ethos is driven from initially the employees, and the top person has to jump on board and has to create that change and create the momentum and actually do the work to make those changes, for sure.
And I suppose in a small business, a small company, that's fairly easy, isn't it? That's fairly flexible. And you would imagine, or you would hope, that it is the directors or the managers or whatever that are leading that. But I would imagine that the difficulty then comes in when you're talking about those larger companies. For example, it might be a manager that is coming to you or wants to make changes. They can influence the people below them, but they haven't got that level of influence on the people above them. So, if you are in that situation, how would you advise somebody to get their higher level managers or directors or whatever on board?
That's a really interesting question. So my specialty is working with small and medium businesses whereby that doesn't happen. Majority of the time it may be an element of managers have sort of come to me, said I need some help, but their bosses are fairly easy to bring on board because there's so many benefits of actually creating a great culture. It's very rare that I've ever had to work in a company or work with a company whereby the management are not, apart from that one particular company, but I would say that if you as a manager is thinking, oh, well, I want to make my department or my workplace a great place to work, even though the rest of the wider the team are not on board, then to make your team's life a better place, or a better, have a better time during that, or a better experience during their job, then there's obviously other tips that are going to come, but it is possible. It's just that you will be doing it in silo, which is sad.
I think as well, I mean, it's a little bit sound horrendous. There's a little bit of a sort of crossover here in what we do, in that quite a lot of the time, the person who comes to grow traffic for SEO or digital marketing, whatever it might be, they understand the benefits of it. They have to do a piece of work perhaps that then convinces either their bosses or their line managers or whatever it might be. I presume some of it will just be in showing the evidence. I mean, Dali, you've done this in the past, haven't you, where you've implemented this in a workplace? Was it a case of let's do it and show the benefits and people will come along with us, or does everybody need to be on board before you start?
A bit of both in some ways. So as the marketing department quite often fits it deals with the HR department to help kind of form that culture, whether that be through internal comms or developing a kind of cultural brand, if you like, that everyone adheres to. Part of that has to be top down, because the employers, the kind of senior C-suite or whatever it would be, they have to agree to invest in that process, because getting there takes time, and obviously that's a resource commitment. But then part of that process, from a marketing kind of perspective, is understanding your brand, and then understanding how your team talks to customers, talks to each other, and then finding the words that you're going to take out and say this is one of our kind of brand words, for example, because half of our team say it and we didn't realize. So that those type of things come from the bottom up, and then you also find that there are things where you say, actually, the way that we are talking doesn't align with our values, with our brand. So we have to rein that in and bring that back. So it kind of flows, and eventually, if it works really well, you start to use all these things as part of your guardrails for how your culture should exist. And so HR implements a bit, marketing owns a bit, but it has to start top down, but then it can flow up as well.
I mean, you are bleeding a little bit into our next point, but yeah, I mean,
you know me, Rella.
Of course, I do. It's interesting, though, isn't it? How you've started to say there that this workplace culture. Initially, this is a digital marketing podcast, isn't it? Why are we talking about workplace culture? But actually, you've started to say it there that having a workplace culture bleeds out into everything else that you're doing, and it bleeds out into the impression that you're putting out into the world about your company and your brand and what you do, doesn't it?
I rely very heavily when necessary, or when I have a company big enough to have their own department for marketing department or marketing team. I rely heavily on them getting involved and being involved with it, because you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a framework that I can put into businesses, but you're right. You have to start at the top. You also need your team on board as well, with it. And normally I sort of find the ones who are the people who are kind of those that sort of, the type of people that go out and buy the latest piece of Apple, or whatever, the latest phone. They're normally really good for actually championing new things within the business, because they love new things, and if you present it to them, they'll go out and champion it for you. It's clever for the right people and let them run with it, right? But you're right.
So
Marketing
you're finding the influencers within the business, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I get them to crack on and do my job for me, basically. But that's once all of the framework and all the behind the scenes work is done, and put in place. But for sure, I mean, I think we are going to be moving on into the next top tip, which is to have a strong mission, vision, values. But again, marketing is very much involved in that. If you apply the same PR and marketing as you do to attract clients, then you can do the same. You can do a lot of good within your business as well.
Yeah. Okay. And you're absolutely right. Let's move on to point number 2.
Yeah,
so
move on.
Point number 1, top 5 tips for building a healthy workplace culture. Tip number 1, start at the top and work your way down. Tip number 2, have a vision and share it. I think those two things go hand in hand, don't they? So explain, Natalie, what do we mean by vision?
Okay, so your vision is the aspirational, sort of what your business wants to is looking to achieve. It's more of the aspirational kind of thing rather than a mission, which is a bit more about how we're going to do that. Okay, so it is different, but they would obviously work together. It's really important that a company owner or whoever's leading the business has a very strong vision, because without a strong vision, then nobody knows where they're aiming for. Okay, that is then underpinned by the mission, which, like I said before, is a bit more practical. Okay, so how we're going to do things, how we're going to get to the vision. And then the values are the things that underpin all of those things and bring everyone together on the same path, right? All of those things super useful, because it's a bit like having a ship without a rudder or a sail. If you don't know, or a map, you're like sort of sailing around in the big blue sea, and you kind of, unless everyone knows exactly where they're heading to, then what you find is little break off sort of people who will break things off, or departments that will sort of go rogue a little bit, and that can cause toxicity, but certainly initially causes confusion within the business. Depending on, again, the bigger the business, the more at risk they are of sort of having people hive off and try and do different things, that just don't really work towards the company's vision.
Yeah, I think the key thing here as well is the share it bit, isn't it? So, Dali, I mean, you've been involved in companies where it's been, that has been a fundamental part of the brand. How then do you share that with employees? How do you share it with stakeholders, with potential customers?
Well, so going back to the top, so talking about vision, I always say that vision is what we want to do to change the world. That's our kind of, if we could change the world, what are we going to do to change the world? And then the mission is kind of that, almost like that everyday business as usual, what we're going to do to get there. Kind of what you said.
Exactly what she said, yeah.
It is, yeah, no, it's exactly what you said. At least I admitted it. At least I said it. What I was going to say. So, but that vision, in many cases, that has to come from the top as well. So that has to be a core part of the business. The reason that the business exists. You can retrofit it, and a lot, many businesses do retrofit it, but it has to be something that the top really kind of can get on board with and behind. And it depends on the company, and it depends on how the recruitment's been done. Quite often, when you recruit people, if you can instill that brand ethos, that vision, that mission, and all the company values into your new recruits from the beginning, then you have a much better chance of getting buy-in later down the line.
But like, really practically speaking, what does that look like? Because I mean, we've been interviewing, haven't we, for new staff this last week, and we always start an interview off not talking about them, but telling them about Grow Traffic and saying, this is what we stand for, and this is what we believe in, and this is what it's like to work here. Does that sound good? Right, let's carry on with the conversation, because they kind of have to understand what we're like before we can decide whether or not we like it. But it's not
starts,
a thing. You don't
it
want
starts
to be...
even further. Sorry, Rachel. It starts even further back than that. It starts with that, with the recruitment process. It starts with the job ad. It's the words that you use in that. It's the language that you use. It's how you portray yourself. Trying to attract the right people before you even get to interview. But yeah, the way that we started
at every point. So for me, and again, this is one of the top tips later down, actually, is what for me it's about getting people to deselect themselves from the process, knowing that they're not right. So if you're using very formal language, for example, in a very corporate minded role, and then you are definitely not going to attract the type of person that I am, for example. I mean, not a chance in hell. I'm very much the types of cultures that I create within businesses are very much sort of non-hierarchical, more flat sort of based companies, more outcome based rather than that command and control old style, of working. So you're looking for people who are self-starters, really, kind of almost like the employeepreneur, right? So, you know, those are the types of businesses that I work with, but that's my niche, right? So the types of language that I would use in an advert is completely different to the type of language I would use if I was recruiting for, you know, a blue chip company, or, you know, a very corporate company with lots of hierarchy, because I want the people that are reading that to deselect themselves and go, nah, don't fancy that.
But so once we've got people, sorry, that sound is horrendous, isn't it? Once we've got people and they are, you know, employees, and they're in the business, how do you keep reiterating that? Because you don't want to be like America, do you? Where like at the beginning of every team meeting, we stand and pledge the mission and values of the business.
No, please don't do that.
You know, how do you keep that alive? And, you know, how do you make sure you are continually telling people that this is what this company is about and this is where we're trying to get to, without continually telling people this is where we're trying to get to?
You continually tell people what you're doing. So there's a number of ways of doing it. The first place that I always start is to have, I do, to be fair, listen, I'm not going to have employees stood there, you know, chanting the values and the vision. But every opportunity that a leader or a manager has to interact with their people, they need to be enforcing, or not enforcing, but reinforcing, that's a better word, and empowering their people to be able to get on board and actually follow that mission, vision and values. It's about having a framework in place where it's constantly reinforcing those things, right? So, you know, that could include the way you recruit. It's having those mission, vision and values on your job description. It's about having outcomes very much created around those mission, vision and values, and obviously then the company business plan as well, really important. It's about communicating with people on a regular basis on how the company's doing, what's going on, what are the priorities, and then giving them regular feedback, right? So having that regular two-way feedback process allows you, and also a feedback process, or a process that reinforces and rewards and challenges people on the company mission, vision and values as well. Really, really important. And then it's about rewarding good behavior. So if you have a list of the types of behaviors that you want to encourage in your business, and you see certain people showing those behaviors, then it's a bit like rewarding, like, you know, dogs when they sit by giving them a biscuit. It's not as, you know, not as basic as that, but it's about knowing what each person needs as an individual and rewarding them for showing those behaviors.
Well, it's positive reinforcement, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
You know, in the sense, like you say, it's not as simple as training a dog or training a horse or whatever, but it's those same principles. You don't want to be, or I certainly wouldn't want to be, the type of company that is constantly telling people off or putting them into tension or hauling them over the coals.
You don't want to be berating people.
No, exactly. But just by doing that, you know, telling somebody when they've done something well, and this is something that I do really try and do. If somebody's done something that I recognise, we make sure we put that in the WhatsApp group. Say, I've just seen that thing that you did and it's really good. And, you know, oh, Dali, you do it all the time. I've just read that blog. It's really good. And I think that, you know, it's key, isn't it? Because also you're not just, you know, telling people about what your company stands for, but you are telling somebody just in a little way on a daily basis, actually, you know, you're doing a good job, and that makes people want to work harder and try harder and do better and learn more, and you get loyalty. Yeah. So again, it's that trickle down approach, isn't it? Of it then it becomes part of your marketing, it becomes part of your employees, it becomes part of how you go out and face the world. You know, it's all of those things.
I think the way that I deal with you know, the way that I feedback on the blogs is possibly quite a good example, really, because I try and just give a bit of feedback on almost all the blogs that team write specifically for us, not for any of the clients, but the ones that they write for us. And largely that's really positive, isn't it? But very rarely I get to give a little bit of constructive
a shit sandwich.
Feedback. But because I'm positively like reinforcing the majority of the stuff we do, it actually means that the odd time that I do pick something out, then it you know, it's easier for somebody to handle. It doesn't feel like they're being micromanaged and everything.
It means more. It means more.
Negative. Yeah. I do see. Justin, you mentioned about WhatsApp before, Rachel. So after Christmas, we had a number of new people in the team. We were starting to feel like we were a bit of a different company. We had issues. We were noticing issues with kind of quality assurance and things like that. And we started to recognize that the way that we communicated in WhatsApp was probably going to have to change as the company grew. You know, it was right for a few people, but as we got more towards 10 people, we were recognizing that we were having to we just have to be a bit more, not formal is not the right word, but maybe professional is the right word, or just change it up a little bit. So we're without losing, but the important thing is doing that without losing that culture that made us special in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, as well, it was about breaking things up, wasn't it? You know, we had the one WhatsApp group, which, as you say, when there's 5 of us, 6 of us, one WhatsApp group is fine. But eventually we had to break that up and start having specific sessions, because otherwise it's just too much and it gets lost and none of it's taken seriously and it's all kind of misconstrued and stuff. So yeah, we had to really think about that. But I think, you know, not unlike any business over the last 2 years, the challenges that we faced were about bringing new people on whilst we're all working remotely, which is very different to bringing on new staff when you're sat next to them in an office and you can have those conversations of, oh, this is the way we do things here, or, you know, this is why we say these stuff. It's really easy when you're all together, when you're all spread out, and we're in Lancashire, Yorkshire, you know, Greater Manchester, whatever. It does make those challenges slightly harder because you're just not having those day-to-day conversations. So you actually have to make that point of saying, these are our values, or this is what we're doing, or, you know, having a fortnightly meeting and saying, this is what we're working on in the background, this is where we're trying to get to. And it's just,
and it makes life easier if you've got a framework that's written down. Go on, Dali, you want to say something?
Go on. That's bringing us on to point 3, so quick.
Just really quickly about vision and mission, because it's interesting. As you know, as a marketer, having done this for all of my career, it's really easy to do it for, you know, to help somebody else do it. But there's something I think we've all found it as kind of the 3 of us running Grow Traffic have found it difficult in some ways to kind of nail down our vision, and really difficult to be honest about it, you know, or be really open about it, and really explore what our aspirations are, not just for the business but for ourselves personally. And it's been an interesting thing to see it from the other side.
I think, I mean, that's the same with anything, isn't it? That's the same with, you know, your website and your social media. Also, you know, it's really easy to tell other people how to do it. It's a little bit harder to do it yourself. So, but yeah, you know, you're right. Knowing the theory is one thing, putting that into practice. And I think perhaps it's harder because when it is your own business, you have the emotion and everything else that goes along with it. When you are coming in as a consultant, I imagine, Natalie, it's not your business. You can take all of the emotion out of that and say, look, black and white, this is what you're going to have to do. This is where you need to get to. You know, it's a completely different scenario, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to move us on because time is marching.
I've got like,
you've got a funeral to go. I know, right. Top 5 tips.
Exactly.
Number 1, start at the top and work your way down. Number 2, have a vision and share it. Number 3, and we've already started touching on this, but have a robust framework that supports you. What do you mean, Natalie?
So the framework really, I mean, certainly the framework that I put into business is not something that's huge and overwhelming, because, you know, small businesses need the flexibility, they need the agility to be able to flex and adapt whenever. But there are some really useful things that all businesses must have in place, and this is part of the framework. So clear expectations for staff, what good looks like, really, really important. Some really decent job descriptions with measurable outcomes. I'm moving away from sort of task-based stuff more into working on outcomes, because it's more of an adult way of doing things, in my opinion. Having clear and regular communication points. So flash meetings in the morning, just to talk about what's priority, who needs some help, who's got capacity. Dead simple, should be 10 minutes. We're talking about monthly updates so that staff know exactly what's going on in the business, what's priority, you know, what are the challenges, what are the positives, celebrate together. Giving regular feedback to staff, so having that sort of platform for two-way communication with manager, and then having a really good recruitment and onboarding process, which we've kind of covered a little bit anyway. But onboarding finding the right people and onboarding them so that they get indoctrinated into the sort of the cult that is your cult, culture, is really, really important. And identifying if they're not the right people as well. And I know that's the next bit. But those are definitely, that should be the majority of your framework.
Yeah,
it's not rocket science.
When you said framework, I think people instantly think about contracts, don't they? And they think about,
obviously HR is important. Yeah, the HR and the documents are super important. I mean, that's basically what's going to save your ass if things go wrong, right? And that is obviously part of the framework as well. Certainly the ones that I put into businesses. But really, from actually creating a great culture, to be honest, the sort of having a contract of employment is not going to make you a great culture. It's the thing that's going to save your backside when shit goes wrong, but it's not going to create a good culture.
Yeah.
Those are the basics. They should be in the business anyway, right?
Well, they should, but I think it's amazing how often they're missed. And you're absolutely right. Those little things, and we're really guilty of this. So as I said before, when we started working from home, and I think this was it was like an impact of being furloughed, or we weren't furloughed, but furloughing staff as well.
Yeah.
We just put our heads down. We were working away. Anything that wasn't fundamentally essential to running the business was scrapped because we were busy and we were struggling and we were trying to survive. And then we forgot to bring those back in. So we didn't have a team meeting for about a year. And it's amazing how quickly things start to slide. And we know what's going on in the business most of the time because we're kind of doing it. But you forget that if you are a member of staff and you are working from home and you might be, quite a significant distance away, you've got no idea what your bosses are doing or how the business is. And like one of our members of staff, we had a conversation about money and we were saying like, oh yeah, well, we've got this big VAT bill coming, blah, blah. And she started panicking. She was like, oh my God, are we going to survive? And we're like, no, we're fine. It's fine. It's just, but we hadn't communicated anything. So she was worrying about stuff. And it is just those little things that you forget. Yeah, it's so important. Like you say, weekly team meetings, daily huddles, or whatever you call them if you can. They're just crucial, aren't they?
They are, yeah, absolutely. The more communication, I've said this recently, I wrote an article actually for Elite Business, but it was all about the fact that, relationships and communication and connection is going to be the next business currency, because that's what people are missing in their lives. And yes, flexible working and working from home and virtual working is all really, really important. If you're not offering that to your staff, then you are going to get left behind. There is no doubt about it. But at the same time, during all of those challenges need to be connected with relationships and connection.
Sally, go on.
Sorry, no, I was going to say I'm going to have to go any minute, Rachel.
Okay.
Sorry,
that's all right. If you need to shoot off, that's fine.
Yeah, carry on.
Well, is there anything you want to drop us your pearls of wisdom before you leave?
Yeah, which bit did you disagree with, Sally?
Yeah.
Go on.
The hire fast, the fire fast.
Yeah, I thought that would be it. Yeah,
I disagree with the most, and to be honest, the reason for that is mainly because of the business that we previously all worked for. Ever since then, I always said that, and it comes back to what Rachel said before about creating business that we want to we would want to work in. I always said that I wouldn't want to create a business where it was easy to fire someone. I always wanted to really hurt. That's and I've always said that. But saying that, if the recruitment process is robust and we're getting the right people coming through in the first place, it shouldn't happen. And also, I think we've got to take a bit of responsibility over this, because if somebody's there and they're not working often, it's your fault, not necessarily theirs, because they've been successful in what they've done before. Why aren't you getting the best out of them in this environment? What's happening?
Yeah, there's a lot of caveats that go around with that. I kind of use that top tip as a bit of a controversial one, to be honest. So hiring fast is really important at this moment in time, because the great resignation and all of the things that are happening in the world right now, if you do not hire fast, you will lose people really, really quickly. So whilst back in the day we used to put a shit ton of hoops in for people to jump through to make sure they're the right people, you within hours you will lose people to a competitor if you don't hire fast. So what I'm now suggesting is not to try and spend hours and days and weeks, going through lots of different loopholes to get people into your business. If you find someone that you think fits the culture and has the right skills, then get them in fast, right? However, you should always have a 6-month probation period, and that's the time that you, both of you, a bit like a marriage, or a bit like a relationship, should be sussing each other out and deciding whether or not you want to work with each other for continued time after that. And I think really the fire fast is within that time, is if you identify that this person is not a good culture fit, doesn't share the same values as your business, and perhaps is not as driven as maybe some of your other people, then you should really look to fire fast in the most compassionate way.
Yeah.
So, don't just be a total knob and just, go, right, you're fired. I think it's about providing that person with the right support, giving them a chance, explaining exactly what you want to see from them. But if it's not working out, then don't sit on it, because this is some of the things that I see a lot on a regular basis, is that people, managers and leaders have sat on that, somebody who's not fitted for a year or 2 years, and then suddenly want to remove them from the business. Realistically, you should be removing them from your business within the first sort of 6 to 12 months if it's definitely not working out and you've tried everything to pull them into and support them into your culture.
Yeah.
There you go, there's my caveat.
Yeah, I agree with that. Natalie, do you want to say goodbye?
I think we've lost.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go to the funeral, but thank you very much. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Natalie. We'll have to catch up at some point soon.
Yeah, we'll definitely catch up.
See you later. Yeah, I just want to say, I think I agree wholeheartedly with that. And I think you're absolutely right. That 6-month probation period is there for a reason. But it's like we were saying before, isn't it? If you are putting out the right impression and, you're giving out a true and an authentic representation of what your business is, you should be attracting the right people. And you do really know quite quickly whether or not somebody is going to fit, and it's all very well saying, well, I want to give them a chance and I want to try them out. Hannah's made a comment actually about firing should be easy, because by the time you're ready to fire them, you know that you have tried everything, that you've given it your best shot, you've done, and you are certain that it's not going to work. And so I'm with that. And I mean, we had this just last week, as I said, we've been interviewing for a content marketing executive recently, which is not a massively high level in the slightest, but we interviewed someone, really liked him, went back the next day, or I think it was the day after actually, and said, yes, we'd like to make you an offer, by which time he'd already been offered a job by somebody else. It's an employee's market, isn't
brutal out there. It's absolutely brutal. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi,
Got me in, coach.
You come in, fed up of typing very quickly, you take Dali's spot and jump in. There we go.
Yeah, it's brutal environment out there at the moment. But also the thing is, right, so listen, I don't know whether you've ever worked in a place where you have felt like a black sheep, right? And you just haven't fitted, but you really want to try and fit, but you know that it's not really right for you. And for me, it's more compassionate to let those people go, because they're never going to be happy in a culture, whereby, I've worked in some pretty brutal cultures, by the way, very work hard, play hard type, sell your soul to the devil type places. I just didn't fit. I was really deeply unhappy, but I stayed there because I thought I needed to put myself through it. And actually, really, in hindsight, it wasn't the right place for me. It wasn't, I wasn't the right person for that particular culture. And I think all of us have got to, as an employee and as a manager or leader, have to decide, am I happy in this job? And, be honest, and then go and find ourselves new jobs if we're not happy.
Yeah. I do definitely agree with that. I used to work in a place where I just didn't fit. I wasn't professional and polished enough, and they didn't like me and I didn't like them, and everyone's much happier since I moved on. But Natalie, how do you balance making it so that you get people who are a good cultural fit and avoiding having kind of carbon copied staff?
Yeah, Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so this is a common question, and it's important from a diversity and equality point of view, is that if you're out there to try and find the same people like you, or the same people as you've already got, that's not that's not about hiring to the same vision or values, right? You can have multiple different people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different genders, all having all that come together with a same or similar vision, a same or similar passion, and have shared values. And that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for carbon copies of people. You're looking for people with diverse skills, diverse qualifications, but it's the main thing is about you all coming together for the same shared purpose, with the same commonality. And it doesn't matter whether you take people from any background, any ethnicity, any gender, any orientation. It's those key elements that you're looking to create or to recreate.
So it's not hiring for personality. It's
no, very much not.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important, isn't it, to put those values front and center and to say this is what we stand for and this is where we're going. Because you're right, we've hired people in the past, and at first we were like, it's not really gonna, and they've worked out to be absolutely brilliant. And then we've hired other people who are very like us, and they haven't quite fit for a multitude of reasons. And absolutely, sometimes you find that perfect person in the most unexpected places, don't you? And you're like, was not expecting that person that we hired to be so aligned and to come along with us and to do everything. So it's about taking brave, but again, this is why absolutely it comes back to point 4, which I didn't actually say before we all started talking about it, but I'll recap in a minute. But the hire fast, fire fast, that's why you have to do that, because you're not going to know until you start working with somebody exactly how well they fit and what they're going to be like. You can't work that out from an hour's interview or 2 hours interview or
and let's be honest, most people bullshit in their interviews. I mean, I did.
Yeah, absolutely. I
literally got all of the jobs that I ever did on basically a whole load of bullshit, which is probably why I got fired fairly quickly after.
I once told a guy I was trying to get a job as a hotel receptionist, and I told the guy that my grandfather owned a chain of hotels in Blackpool.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Was that a panic?
What do you mean a panic? Did I do it in a panic? No, I thought this was going to be an amazing strategy, this to get me this job.
Oh my God.
Can't blag it. But also, I think some people are just so shy in interviews. Yes. And I remember interviewing Chloe, who, we absolutely love, and she's traveling the world and we miss her dearly. And God, she didn't say 2 words. And I thought, she's going to be hard work. And she's not. And I say this to her face all the time, so she won't mind me saying it. But she's not. She was amazing. She's an amazing woman. And so I think sometimes, you kind of just have to take a punt on people if they've got a good skill set, or if they've not got the skill set, but they've got a good kind of, shared values, then take a punt, because you can teach the skills. Would you say, Natalie?
Yeah, you can. In most cases, yes, you can teach skills if you've got the personality, and absolutely. Obviously, some businesses and some jobs need actual qualifications, right? But even then, still, I mean, someone who's never done finance before. They can't even add up, but they're a nice person.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance, and like you said, that 6-month probationary period is there for a reason. So if they're genuinely not going to fit, and you will know fairly quickly.
They know.
Yeah, don't flog a dead horse. Let it go. But for everybody else, okay, I'm going to keep us going. So top 5 tips: building a healthy workplace culture. Number 1, start at the top, because culture begins at the top and it trickles down. Number 2, have a vision and share it, equally as important. Number 3, have a robust framework that supports that, so that you have a way of continually telling your staff and your suppliers and your customers and your potential customers what you stand for and why you are doing it. Number 4, hire fast and fire fast. That's what we just talked about. And number 5, know your people. And I think when I was reading your notes, Natalie, it was really interesting as well. You didn't just say know your people. You said treat them like adults. And I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Listen, at the end of the day, if you're going to bring people into your business, then you're bringing in experts. In most cases, you're bringing in experts in their own field. You need to let them and empower them to actually show their expertise. I mean, listen, I have all sorts of people that work in my business, and they're all a hell of a lot better at everything that they do than I am. I don't even know half of the shit that they do. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to know my staff, my people, and get to actually know what motivates them. I need to know about them. I need to know their kids' names and their dogs and their cats, and what motivates them, what gets them up in the morning, what makes them passionate, what makes them sad and unhappy, right? And the better you know your people, the more likely you'll be able to, respond to them in whatever mood or energy levels they've got on that day. And it is about having that adult to adult relationship, because very much back in the day, I think probably the people who led, or let's not use the word led, managed us back in the day, came from that kind of like 70s, 80s kind of style of management, which was very much about lording it over everybody else and treating people under like children, telling them off when they've done something naughty. And we've still got an element of that, unfortunately, that ripples through employment law. Employment law is archaic. It says, oh, if someone does something naughty, you need to take them through a disciplinary process. Well, okay, yes, you might be able to do that in the eyes of the law, but is that actually going to get you to where you need to be? Is that actually going to motivate them? Probably not. Actually take them to one side and go, that probably wasn't the best thing to do. Do you think we could do that? How could we do that differently another time? Is more likely to generate better results, because you're not undermining them, you're not treating them like children, and you're not disempowering your people. And that, unfortunately, is very much the old style of management, which we're trying to move away from. In my opinion, people at the top should be either leading or coaching, nothing else. Yes, you can manage your processes, you can manage, the sort of timelines and stuff, but when you're actually dealing with the people, it's about leading and coaching.
We're back to that positive reinforcement, aren't we?
Yeah.
It should be about rewarding the good things and giving examples. You said this before, showing people this is the standard we expect. This is what we're aiming for. So this is really good, rather than just, if you're constantly telling somebody off or telling them that they're wrong or telling them that they're shit or whatever, that is so demoralizing. And then you end up in that situation, don't you, where you start, you start making mistakes because you're so nervous, and then, you do everything wrong anyway. But I think what's also really interesting is that get to know people. And again, I think this is an easier thing to do in a smaller company than it is in a big one. But it makes, people respond to different things in different ways. And we, you can see this brilliantly in Grow Traffic, where we have the full range of mental states of well-being. Probably each one of us goes through the full range on a day-to-day basis.
On a minute-by-minute basis.
Yeah.
Well, we never do it at the same time.
Otherwise,
matters. We manage to do it like one a day. Like one person seems to pick a day for the mental breakdown. But it's really important that we learn how each other's responding, because sometimes, I know one person will respond better to just being told straight out, whereas somebody else needs to be brought round to think that it was their idea in the first place. And understanding that and knowing that there's no one size fits all, is there? You've got to have that individualized response, and understanding people is key to that. And then you can hopefully try and bring the best out of them.
And there's knowing your people. Oh, sorry, go on, Hannah.
No, go on, you're all right.
Well, I was going to tell a story, really, which I think is interesting and demonstrates that it is perfectly possible, even in a big company, to know your people. And it's the way that you set it up, really. And it's the way that if you are focused on knowing your people, then you can do it. So the likes of Simpsons and various other companies, and a particular company I'm going to use as an example, which I'm not going to name, but a company that I worked with many years ago. And the manager, the CEO of the business, knew all of his staff, right, by name. Okay. And the reason why he was able to do that was because he actually took the time to learn it. Now, he didn't learn every single person. He didn't learn like all of the details. But what he used to do is, on a regular basis, he would have meetings with his managers, and he would ask them to go through the teams, right? So he would kind of get to know them by proxy. So each manager would go through, well, this person's this, is doing this at the moment, they're doing that, and they would name them, and that's the way that he did it, right? So it's perfectly possible, even in a very big company, to still know your teams and still know your people. Now, I say to my clients to have a little black book, or whatever color you choose, because sometimes black has a bit of an odd connotation. But I have business owners who have like a little yellow book, and they will write just little notes about, such and such has had a baby or a grandchild, and it's called Bob or whatever it might be, just so that they can rely on that the next time they need to have a conversation with that person. And I think it's really important to know these little tiny things, because it means so much to the employee.
Yeah. Was it Franklin D. Roosevelt, I think, that he hired somebody specifically to follow him around and either note things down or remember things about people, so that when he met somebody, they would say, "Oh yeah, this is such as
Billy's got gout," kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly like that. So that he looked like he remembered everybody, and that was one of the key things as to why he was so popular and everybody loved it, because everyone felt like. Yeah.
It's so important, not just for culture, but also for retention and recruitment. Because there's absolutely nowhere to hide. And I think it became really clear. The sun has just come out, and I feel like I feel like I'm like going to walk into the light.
God is coming for you.
It's doing my roof lantern. So there's nowhere to hide, and the papers were full of stories, and social media was full of stories during the first lockdown about businesses that weren't trusting the staff, that were like checking mouse clicks and stuff like that. And, these people are grown-ups, like they're able to function and manage their life. And if you're so worried that someone's ripping you off, then they're probably not, like, firstly, it probably says more about you than them. But also they're probably, not a good employee that's proven themselves in the past, or, I just don't think.
Also, I mean, how do you must know what is going on in your business. If the work in your business is not getting done, you must know that, and therefore you can start to address it at a systemic level. But if the work of your business is being done, and things are going out, you surely don't need to be saying to your staff, you've got to log in and log out, and every time you go for a toilet break, you've got to clock off, and I'm not paying you for that. It's just so outdated, isn't it? And
it really is.
It impacts everything about that employee's life, then, not just the way that they work, but the way that surely. I remember when I was in hospital and Dally wasn't allowed to take time off because it'd been seen as he'd had enough time off recently, even though I was like dying of meningitis in hospital. And that whole mentality then of he was panicking, of he didn't want to come to the hospital, and maybe it was all just an excuse, who knows. But
he didn't even have a job at that time.
Yeah, he was just pretending. But it trickles down into everything, and it impacts how people view their home life. It impacts their mental health. It impacts how often they take time off, and then you get into presenteeism, and all of that stuff. And that trickle down impact is phenomenal.
And it's not just like attitudes as well; it's policies and processes. So I remember having a miscarriage, and God, it is so bright in here. I remember having a miscarriage, and because it was policy when somebody had time off to get them in front of HR and do like a kind of, like interrogation of their time off. I was hauled in for having had I had like 2 weeks off having a miscarriage and the operation, and all the sort of stuff that goes with it, and the emotional trauma. And it was like, well, this is just our policy. Like, why is that your policy still? Like, people get ill, life goes on.
And have some flexibility about your policy.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, and I left that place soon after, and never looked back. So I think in terms of retaining the staff that you've worked hard to train, and that you've like spent money on recruiting and time and stuff, I just don't know why you wouldn't treat them like adults.
It's all of those are all of the things that I hate about traditional HR, like all of the things.
Yeah. And I do hope, I mean, I've been saying this for 2 years, I really, really hope that the pandemic has taught people that there is a different way. I mean, Grow Traffic, we're slightly ahead of the curve in that this is how we were running our business anyway. Yes. But I was really, really hopeful that the pandemic has taught, and I can see, things are changing, the conversation is shifting. Yeah, was it the CEO of who was that company who said everybody had to go back in and like 2/3 of them didn't or whatever? What was that company? It was only a
Yes,
few weeks ago. It was
it was in the
like,
news. I remember. I can't think of the guy's name.
It was a big global company. Anyway, he said I
Was
want
it
everybody.
KPMG or someone like that?
It
Maybe.
was like a financial services one, yeah. But he was like, I want everyone back in the office Monday morning. We're back to working
Nobody
from
turned
home,
up.
and nobody turned up. But I think, and so there are like glimmers that things are changing. But I do think in our rush to return to normality, we have let a lot of those things slide back in and go back into that. So I know change doesn't happen overnight. I know it will be a gradual thing, but I genuinely hope that as a society we can carry on moving in that direction. And on that note, I'm conscious we have gone 25 minutes over here. We've done an hour's session that was supposed to be 30 minutes, but it's absolute gold. So we've never done this before. So first of all,
oh God.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm a rule breaker, I like it.
Absolutely. There we go. We're not sticking to a policy just for the sake of a policy. Right. Top 5 tips then for building a healthy workplace culture. Number 1, start at the top because it is a trickle down effect. Number 2, have a vision, but more importantly, share it with people. Tell everybody about it and explain why. Number 3, have a robust framework that supports that. And that isn't just policies and documents and handbooks. That is regular meetings and, regular ways of keeping up with people and regular sessions down the pub if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Number 4, hire fast and fire fast. You know very quickly whether or not somebody's right. And if they're not, don't let it drag out. Get rid of them. Find somebody better. And number 5, know your people. And that's a little thing. And finally, know your people, but also treat your people like grown-ups because they are, unless you're doing child labour. So there we go. Top 5 tips. Natalie, have you got a final thought or a final reminder that you'd like to give to people?
Oh goodness! Now you put me on spot. No, I mean, listen. Let's do a quick plug. If there are CEOs or there are business owners out there who need help with either their HR or building a great culture, then do come to me. It is a passion. It's something I've been doing for many, many years before I even had a word for what I was doing. And literally. And the pandemic has made changes. Society has changed. And if you're not going to jump on board, you will get left behind.
Yeah, brilliant. And please, Natalie, do go and put your contact details in the chat function for people, then they can get hold of you. Hannah, final thought.
Final thoughts from heaven today.
Yes.
I think don't let professionalism get in the way of humanity. Like you are a human and you're dealing with humans at the end of the day, like not resources. And don't be all business and no heart if you need to show a heart.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like we said at the beginning, when we set out with Grow Traffic, what we wanted to do was build the kind of company that we wanted to work for. So if you are an employer or a director or an owner, or whatever you are, build the kind of business that you want to work for. Treat people how you want to be treated. It's not rocket science, and the world of work could be a much better place. Thank you so much to you two for joining me. Thank you for Dali, who shut off and went to a funeral. If you have been watching us live, thank you very much. If you are watching it back and you would like to ask us a question, you can still leave us a comment because we will see it. If you are listening to this on a podcast, please rate us and subscribe and tell somebody. If you are watching it on YouTube, subscribe below, guys. And also do leave us a comment because we will read it. Natalie and I are recording just a podcast episode next Thursday, aren't we? So that'll be out next Friday. We're going to be doing a deep dive into a case study looking at workplace culture and how it can benefit you. So join us for that. And we'll be back here on Facebook Live in 2 weeks' time. But I've got no idea what we're talking about. That's it. The sun is out. Hannah's in heaven. Let's all go and have a lovely weekend. Wave.